Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to this very interesting meeting on the river restoration. Thank you very much to Eva for a personal invitation to me, and thank you to the Clean Baltic Coalition for hosting this important event. I'm Przemysław Ogiński from the Nature Conservation Unit in DG Environment. I am very happy that we are here in this beautiful region of Poland, just outside the Drava National Park. I think there couldn't be a better place for organizing an event like this on river restoration, because we are in this very special area where the natural rivers are the most important feature of this park, and I'm sure tomorrow we'll learn more about it. So yes, without any further ado, I would like to give you a little bit of introductory information on where we are in the European context in terms of EU Biodiversity Strategy, but also the proposal for the nature restoration law, and specifically on the biogeographical process of designating additional protected areas. And I'm very happy that this event is taking place, because we really need some impetus to accelerate this process for designating additional protected areas and meeting the other objectives of the biodiversity strategy, particularly related to improving the connectivity of our rivers, removing the barriers of our rivers. So yes, I'm very happy that we are kickstarting this process here. So a lot of information that I have probably will not be new for you, but just to set the context, the framework, I think it's good to remind ourselves about some basic information about where we are with these things. So we have already quite a strong legislative context, legislative basis for protecting our nature in the EU. We have the Habitats Directive, we have the Birds Directive, and as regards the Habitats Directive, we have 10 river habitat types protected in the EU. But in addition to that, we also have many other freshwater habitat types that functionally are related to our rivers, and their protection is equally important to make sure that our rivers are in a good condition. So these are freshwater habitats and other habitat types. For example, the riparian forests that grow along the rivers. We also have species under the EU protection, including 65 freshwater species and other species that depend on the good quality of rivers, including otters, beavers, amphibian birds, etc. So this is very indicative of how important the rivers are and how multifunctional their functions are to secure the appropriate habitat and the living conditions for this many species and habitat types. Unfortunately, in spite of this very important role of our rivers, they are not in a very good condition. There is a solid scientific base for this conclusion, because according to EU legislation, we have a 6-year reporting process whereby all the member states are required to report to the Commission on the state of the habitats and species. And the last reporting cycle concerned the dates 2013-2018. And after that, the European Commission put together the data from all the member states And here we are with, in terms of aggregated information on the quality of our habitat types. So the picture is rather grim because only 15% of our habitat types are in a good condition. The rest is pretty much in a bad or unfavorable situation. And when it comes to specifically freshwater habitat types, they are pretty much in the mid-range of this indexes. So they are definitely not doing as well as they should be. As regards the species, the situation is a little bit better because approximately 1/4 is considered in a good condition. And as regards the fish species, they are exactly in this average rate with 25% of fish species in a good condition. The rest is either unknown, we still miss some data on their conservation status, but the rest is in a bad status. And unfortunately, there is not a lot of hope for optimism because the indicators for most of them are deteriorating. So it is yet another call for action. As regards the main threats to our habitats and species, specifically freshwater habitats, you can see that agriculture is identified as the main threat. Then all sorts of infrastructure developments would be the second most important threat. And then the third is the human-induced changes to water regimes. So definitely things that we have to work on to improve the condition. As regards the species, the fish species, it is the changes in the water regimes that are identified as the most important threat to their conservation status. So definitely work on the removal of the barriers is something that is of absolute urgency and importance to do to improve the condition of our fish species. The reason for this very bad condition, of course, are multiple, but barriers are definitely one of the biggest threats, as was evidenced by a recent study of the European Environment Agency, which tracked and mapped all the barriers on the European rivers. And you can see from this map that the situation is indeed very bad because as much as 1 million barriers was found on our rivers. And it was considered a significant pressure for about 20% of European surface water bodies. So yet another evidence that these barriers have to be removed to improve the situation. So that was the overview of a very bad picture. But of course, we cannot dwell only on what is bad, what is negative, but we have to think how to solve the problem. And the problem was indeed recognized by the European Commission, the wider context of the biodiversity crisis, and specifically the context of the bad condition of our rivers. And in 2019, to address these multiple crises, including the climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis, the Commission came up with its main political response, which is the European Green Deal. And one of the specific deliverables under the European Green Deal is the European Biodiversity Strategy that was adopted in May 2020. And now I will briefly focus on the biodiversity strategy and its main purposes. We have 4 priorities in the biodiversity strategy. The first priority, to protect nature. The second priority, to restore nature. And I will mostly focus on these 2 issues in the rest of my presentation. But we also have to remember that there are some other important factors to be included and some other important priorities that should make the biodiversity a success. It's the enabling transformative change. So everything that relates to ensuring that we have enough money, that we have sufficient enforcement of the legal tools that we already have in place, and also an ambitious global agenda, which led, for example, to the very important agreement at the end of last year in Montreal, where on the global level, all the UN member states agreed to also protect and restore nature on the global agenda. So when it comes to the specific objective of protecting nature in the biodiversity strategy, the Commission proposed and the member states agreed to the goal of protecting 30% of EU land and sea. A third of this, so 10% of our land and sea should be protected in a strict way. And there is also a commitment to improve the conservation status of at least 30% of species and habitats, so that they show a positive trend towards reaching a favorable conservation status. So how these goals are going to be implemented and discussed between the member states and stakeholders. Well, this is one of the fora that contributes to that, because we have planned biogeographic seminars divided into 5 main regions. So we will discuss these issues, how we can achieve this goal of 30% and 10% on off-street potential in this, according to this different regions. The member states were expected to submit their pledges on how they want to achieve these goals by the end of last year. Unfortunately, none of them had done it by that time, but since then, 3 member states have proposed how they're going to achieve this target of 30% of protected areas. And this is Germany, Spain, and Luxembourg. Two member states, Cyprus and Luxembourg, have proposed also commitments to improve the conservation status of species and habitats. And we are going to have more detailed discussions for this different biogeographical regions, starting with Atlantic seminar in Germany. We will have Micronesian one in Azores, and for marine regions, we will discuss these issues in Latvia and Ireland. And I also heard that Croatia proposed to be the host country for the Mediterranean seminar. So the process is getting momentum. The process is accelerating, and I'm very happy that today we are discussing these things for the rivers, because it is very timely, and I hope we will have very interesting discussions how the improvement of the status of these rivers can contribute to the pledges for these different biogeographic regions. The second most important priority under the biodiversity strategy is the so-called EU restoration plan. And the biggest and the most important element of this plan is the proposal for a regulation on nature restoration, which was tabled by the Commission in June last year. It is important also to note that this proposal was adopted together with a proposal of a directive on sustainable use of fertilizers. And if this directive gets adopted, it will, of course, also have a very important impact on our rivers and fresh waters, because, as we all know, the fertilizers are one of the biggest sources of pollution of our rivers and fresh waters. So these acts go hand in hand. And under this EU restoration plan, we have a specific goal of restoring 25,000 kilometers of free-flowing rivers. So I'm happy to discuss later today and tomorrow how we can work towards achieving this goal. So now a very short introduction to this proposal on the nature restoration regulation. Very briefly, it will have the overarching objectives. We'll have specific restoration targets for different ecosystem types, and the whole implementation framework to make sure that it will work. So the overarching objective is to recover our ecosystems and our biodiversity, working together in synergy with the climate change agenda. The overall target is to have restoration measures that will cover 20% of EU land and sea by 2030. And by 2050, we should have all ecosystems in need for restoration under appropriate restoration measures. So what is important, what is understood by restoration? It's essentially a process that can includes active and passive measures to restore nature, but it can also include things like improved reestablishment and reconnection of ecosystems between themselves. Then we have specific restoration targets for all these different groups of habitats and species, including land habitats and species, marine, urban ecosystems, river connectivity, pollinators, and specific targets for agroecosystems and forest ecosystems. Under the terrestrial part, there are specific targets to be achieved by specific dates. And the existing Natura 2000 network is, of course, an important element of this objective. We have a list of habitats, terrestrial habitats and marine habitats, which are supposed to be subject to this restoration measures. And under Article 7, we have also a specific target for the river restoration, and this commitment of restoring 25,000 kilometers of free-flowing rivers is also repeated in this nature restoration regulation proposal. What are the components of this restoration measures on the rivers? First of all, it is proposed that first we carry out an inventory of the existing barriers, then identify the barriers that have to be removed. And here there is a proposal to focus on the ones that are obsolete, because as we know that there are many barriers that played a role in the past, but right now they don't have any socioeconomic justification, so they should go in the first as the first priority. There is also a requirement to set up a timetable in the national restoration plans to achieve this measure, and also other measures, for example, related to some ecosystem along the rivers that should contribute to these free-flowing rivers. How these objectives are going to be achieved? Well, the member states will be required to prepare so-called national restoration plans, where they will identify all the targets, all the areas, indicators, and synergies with climate change and other strategies. They should also think how they're going to finance these things. And once the regulation is adopted, the member states will have 2 years to propose to the Commission such a national restoration plan, and the Commission will assess and review these plans. There are also, of course, no legislation can work fully well without a proper monitoring and reporting system. So there is also a proposal for a robust monitoring and reporting agenda with the help of the European Environment Agency. There will be also some requirements for setting further details, and this will be done by the Commission in 2 formats, in the so-called delegated acts and implementing acts. So things like specific information on indicators, the format for the restoration plans, the format for monitoring, all of that will be specified in detailed acts that will come later. And of course, there is a big question of financing. How are we going to pay for all of that? Well, first of all, we have to note that there is already quite a lot of money available for biodiversity under the current under the current EU budget, which allows funding also biodiversity. And the EU made the commitment to spend at least 10% of its budget by 2027 on biodiversity. So there is money available, but we have to tap into it. Of course, probably not all the financial needs are fully met at the moment, and there are some calls for example, a dedicated nature fund. But we will see how this develops. And I mean, these are, of course, very big figures that we need to dedicate to the biodiversity and restoration, but we have to remember that this comes at a very big benefit because it is estimated that every euro spent on nature restoration and protection, it has a return of 8 euros in additional benefits for the society. So, of course, this, from our perspectives, it is money well spent. And just at the end, just to close my presentation, where we are with this proposal. So, as I said, it was tabled by the Commission in June last year. We had initial discussions under the Czech presidency. The Parliament and the Council are the co-legislators in this case. And in the Parliament, we have the Environment Committee that will prepare a report with the proposal for the Parliament to adopt. The Environment Committee is actually proposing some additional ambition, but other committees that are also involved, including agriculture and fisheries, are maybe less optimistic. But we will see how this discussions will continue. Right now we have the Swedish presidency, and it will end. The Swedish presidency finishes in June this year, and they are hoping to have an agreement on the council position on that, and the European Parliament will also vote on its report soon. And under the next presidency, starting in July, it will be the Spanish presidency. We hope that there will be final discussions, and we hope that this law will be proposed, will be adopted by the end of this year. Of course, this is a very optimistic scenario, but yes, to be seen. And I definitely stay hopeful, and I think we all stay hopeful about its future perspectives of this very ambitious and, as Eva said, game-changing piece of legislation. So thank you very much.